What's going on?
Hey, Flavor. Morning.
Hey, Karthik. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Welcome to the Playroom officially.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're most
Wow.
welcome.
Good to be talking to you. Where are you based out of, Flavor?
Atlanta.
Oh, nice.
What about
Okay.
you?
How, I'm in Bangalore in India, so
Wow, this is the
two sides
first.
of the planet.
Wow, this is exciting. You're the first, I would say officially, you're the first Indian to be in our show, and it's such a pleasure to have you. It is an honor to have you here, man.
Absolutely my pleasure as well, my friend. So, yeah, I'm all yours for the next 60 minutes. Whatever it takes.
Yeah, most definitely. Tell me more about yourself. Let the people know who you are. Now we know where you are from, but I'm sure people want to understand, oh, what does he do? What is a profession? I would definitely want to tap in.
Oh yeah, thanks for asking. My name is Karthik, and like I said, I am based in India, in Bangalore, and Bangalore is called as the Silicon Valley of India. So it's like yeah, it's more or less. If you've been to the Bay Area, it's more or less a similar culture that exists in this place. So yeah, that's where I am from, and I am a podcaster too. I also do a couple of other things. I am a
Okay.
copywriter, and I also help brands create podcasts for their brands. All right, so I think that's what I do, and I have a long history. Happy to jump into whatever makes sense as we
Okay.
go on.
Okay. Most definitely. You mentioned making podcasts for people. Tell me the
Yeah.
process. How does that work for you? And how do they find it easy to work with when you let them go? Or do you have to be with them and help them through the ropes as they build their courses and their modules and episodes or whatever they want to build as a brand?
Yeah, I think I help people in a couple of ways. One, of course, is the courses that I create, but I think that's a very non-touch way of helping.
Nice.
And the major work that I do is actually working in person with brands. And when I say brands, these are bigger brands which have like a presence global, a global presence, and also with startups. So it's interesting that you ask me how I work, because it's so different in the way I work with these brands as opposed to how I work with just people like you. And when I say you, personal brands, you and me.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to brands, the way I look at podcasts and the way I urge other brands to look at podcasts is a way of building relationships. And when I say relationships, specifically relationships with your audience, your customers, or your whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the way I tend to look at podcasts in general. And when it comes to brands, the way we start is we start with talking about the brand itself as to what the brand is trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Because as you can probably imagine, every brand has a certain kind of a goal. They start talking about that business goal, and which eventually leads to multiple kinds of engagements that they want to do. The tools to do what you want to do may be different, and podcasting is just one such tool. So the conversations typically start with where you really want to go. What are your goals? And I think it's practically the same step that I push even personal brands to do.
Okay. That's a great point that you mentioned, because when you think about solving problems and you think about having a brand, you think about the external factor, you think about the end consumer, the quality of audio, the quality of messaging, the quality of deliverance, the quality of just creating value and
Right.
having an offer that is actually so hard to miss because it's so good that somebody needs this for their daily lives because it's actually an asset to their business.
Right.
So I know that sometimes people start podcasts, they fail. I started a podcast, I stopped and then I started again. I was talking about this on Clubhouse just yesterday, and it's amazing that now I picked it up again, and I've been doing it for 2 years now, since 2019, and I've seen the growth. I've definitely seen the growth. I really appreciate anyone listening to me, everyone listening to me, and especially the person listening right now, because it just feels good to actually talk about things like this that you wouldn't see on TV, you know. But also, you know, that podcasts fail because sometimes people just give up, or they don't know what to say. They don't have content. They can't produce once a week. So how do you identify those problems, and how do you solve them when they become an issue?
You know, it's interesting you used the word fail, and you used it a couple of times.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen this being used by a lot of people. I think for those of you who think it's failing, let me give you a different way of looking at it. First of all, let me tell you that your podcast is not failing.
Thank you.
Your podcast never fails. What is probably failing is your message.
Right.
What's probably failing is who you're talking to. A better way of looking at it, Flavor, is think about it this way, right? You're hungry and you want to have a good meal. Maybe it's just maybe just a burger, but you want something to eat.
Yeah.
And it makes more sense for you to go and stop by, say, McD's or some place where you can get burgers, as opposed to going to a place where you get ice creams.
Right.
So there is a mismatch in terms of what you want and what you get. So what happens is, typically when people start a podcast, they don't think too much about who they want to connect with.
Yeah.
They don't think about what is that message they want to send across. And they end up doing a show which is all about themselves.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine. You should do, in fact, a show about yourself. But it's a good idea if you can take a moment, pause, and think about, what do I really want to tell about myself?
Yeah.
That can help me connect with a certain set of people. Not the entire world, not the entire city, not the entire town. Just enough people. It could be just a handful of people, 10 people, 20 people, 100 people. What do you want to tell them? They are people just like you, perhaps. If you can hone on that message, and if you can find the right set of people, I think you have a successful show. So there is no failure when it comes to podcasting in mind.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think the moment you're able to understand what questions people are asking, then you're able to expand that and do 10 minutes every week, 10 minutes every week, 10 minutes every week. Before you know it, you've done 52 weeks and you have 52 episodes. And you look back, you're like, wow, it's good I started, because it's always better to start with a step than to start with a jump. So
absolutely,
it just makes a lot of sense. And in your profession too, how would you say that you have become deep and engaging when letting your clients know that they need to have engaging conversations with complete strangers? Like, look at us, you know, you're all the way in India, I'm all the way in Atlanta, but we're speaking like friends, we're speaking like we know each other. So you have to be confident with yourself enough to actually become the voice. So how do you teach them those processes so they don't feel overwhelmed?
Well, it's a little different with brands, because as you can imagine, brands don't have faces.
Right.
I mean, that's what happens with them. It's a little different with brands. But let's talk about personal brands. Maybe someone who's listening to this has, and in my opinion, all of us have a personal brand.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you create. You're already living inside of this personal brand, because people around you are making something out of what they see and feel about you, when they talk to you, when they look at you. So let's talk about personal brands. And I think the one thing that I always talk about when it comes to podcasts is think about it this way. Just like you and I are speaking at this point. Yeah. We are, end of the day, connecting with people.
That's true.
You could be doing a business as a personal brand. It could be that you're running a store, or it could be that you're running a coaching service or something, right? But end of the day, we do businesses with people. Yeah. Right? We don't interact with machines. So what we're looking at is connecting with with another human, just like you and I.
Yeah.
So it's all about building a good relationship, right? At this point, we got started talking in the last less than 10 minutes, and I already feel like we're talking as if we met last week.
Right.
Right. So it's about being easy with your own voice and being easy with accepting another person, who's sitting across the table or remotely with you for a conversation. And just think about it this way. Don't. I think I've seen a lot of people talk about the dating analogy. I
Yeah.
think that's a little too heavy because you're trying to impress somebody there. But here, you're not trying to impress somebody. You're just trying to connect with that human. You're just trying to connect with their, with their the very feelings they made about.
Yeah.
So I think if you think about it that way, automatically things start to fall in place. You lose that anxiety. You stop sweating and you start getting the right words in your mouth to talk.
Yeah, that's true. And it makes it better for you because like you mentioned, as a brand, people understand who you are as a brand when they understand the promise you're making every day. So
Right.
that consistency, that resilience, that tenacity is very important for someone to say, okay, he actually means what he says. Okay, this product actually works. Okay, this service is actually important. So
Right.
people get to understand how important something is when you put that first leg forward. And it takes a long time because you may think, oh, nobody's going to like me, or nobody's going to like this, nobody's even listening to me. But once you start putting those thoughts in your head, then that's exactly what's going to happen. Because
And frankly, you don't really need everybody to like you.
no, you don't.
You just need some people to like you. That's okay.
Exactly.
And that is the set of people you want to talk to. Don't. Which is why I say there is nothing called as failure. Even one person you connect with is a huge success.
Yeah, it is a huge success. I think because two people tend to see themselves differently, that they put
Right.
themselves out in a different way. And
Right,
it takes a while for someone to realize that, hey, I actually have value. Let me be the best I can be to this person now. And people don't see
Right.
that. So with that in mind, how do people even align a podcast to your brand or your business, or to their brand, to their business? How do they say, okay, we have staff, we have media, now we have a
Right.
podcast. Where does this fit in? So how do you help them align those things that it's not so foreign to the point where now it becomes a problem?
Right, and as you can imagine, if I were to say, hey, brands are nothing but human beings too. If you think about it that way, just like the parts of our body, every part of the body has a certain job to do, right? Eyes are meant to see, your nose is meant to smell, yada yada.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at brands the same way, you'll start to see that there are portions of the brand that are focused on what they do. There are portions of the brand which is focused on telling the world what they do. There are portions of the brand which is looking at sustaining itself as a brand. So you can put different departments like finance, marketing, your product, teams of that kind in different buckets. So once you understand this, it's about just connecting with the right people in trying to help them do what they really want to do. Just to give you some examples,
Yeah.
every brand has a product or a service. So it could be that they're launching a new product and they want to talk to the world about the product. It could be the case that they're marketing a new product and they want to connect with a set of their audience, so that they can connect with them and build a relationship. As you probably know, one of the biggest ways podcasts are being used, even by you and I, is to build relationships.
Yeah.
So brands do the same thing. So it's about finding the right people and starting to build a relationship with the people, with the
Yeah.
audience, so that they can later on bring on their products and services in the right time. So it's all about finding the right people and trying to understand what these people are being paid to do. Like, I mean, if Flavor is running a brand, is running marketing for maybe Jordans at Nike, then I would be wanting to know what Flavor is being paid to get done. What is his paycheck dependent on, and how can I be helpful? How can I help him in making sure that the next paycheck is going to come in? Even better, that he gets a promotion.
Yeah.
And if I can make you successful, then I've made the brand successful.
Yeah. Speaking of flavor, just a little detour. People usually see my name as Favor, and then they know my stage name is Flav Beats, and then they join it together and then call it Flavor. And it's funny that you mentioned it, because people used to do Favor and Flavor, and then that's how I got to find the name Flav, because I mixed them together. So it's like, okay, Flav, let's do that. So it's amazing that you mentioned that, because you see, it's all about branding. When you hear the name, it sounds like something to your ear, and you actually go along with it. If you don't like it, you're not gonna buy it. So
Right.
That's the thing. And even looking at your hoodie, you said it says free your voice, and the word voice in terms of podcasting is huge, because I was talking about this and it came to me in a couple of episodes before, and I was telling the person that, even telling people on Clubhouse, that voice for me is an acronym, and I created this. It's value, offer, incentive, conversion, evaluation.
Beautiful.
And you know that all those things matter, because it's a cycle. If somebody evaluates you well, if somebody gives you a good referee recommendation, if somebody gives you a good thumbs up, then the next person that comes, some people have businesses that are 99.9% referral. So
Right.
people need those referrals, those evaluations, those good, conditions to make sure that the next person feels comfortable, to work with you. So it makes a lot of sense when you're able to be that voice, and somebody's actually able to listen to you, understand, and then build that relationship going forward. Because once you're able to build a relationship, like shout out to Podmatch, you're able to meet people that connect. And this is one way that people actually feel close to each other, because they know that, okay, this is what I'm trying to do. This person has no idea how to get it done, but I'm here to help them through the process. Even for you mentioned that, earlier that, building a brand from scratch is not easy. And I know exactly how you feel. So for you, what was it like, especially in India? Because people will be like, okay, is it the same thing in India that it is in the US or in Nigeria or in South Africa or in Australia? Is there a different dynamic to it? So tell us more about how you actually took a career break and you built your online brand from scratch. This is interesting.
I took a break in 2016, and I had worked for about 15 years, slightly over 15 years at that point, in the world of products, marketing, and design. And I just felt it was time. I gave myself a chance to explore things that I really wanted to explore.
Yeah.
And I really didn't have any plans, and that's the hard truth. And I just took a break, and culturally, it was not something that people accepted. So I told the world around me here that I was doing something, that people felt comfortable listening to. So in process, what I did was I started to blog, and eventually I started a podcast after actually writing to these people in my blog, and I asked them if there were a lot of questions coming in. And I said, hey, would you like me to interview people and get them to answer these questions? Because I'm not the right guy to answer your questions. And a good number of them told me yes. So that I took as a great thumbs up to start a podcast. And it's not that I started a podcast out of the blues. I wanted to start a podcast for a long time. I've been listening to podcasts since 2009, 2008 types. And I was... in my last job, I was spending 15 days every month, roughly, in the US, in the Bay Area. So I was like flying all the time, and it so happened that when I was there, I started to meet podcasters. I started to meet podcasting. I went to podcasting meetups. And that's how I started to get acquainted with podcasters. And in the due course, I started to pick up microphones and expensive equipments, which probably was not required to start in the first place. But slowly, I had literally set up the stage to do something, I guess. So I started the show at 2016, October 17th is when I started the show. And well, I did have some lofty plans, thinking that I'm going to be making like 20, 30,000 downloads an episode in 3 months from then. But well, reality is a lot different, right?
Yeah.
So I started to stop looking at downloads, and I was just focusing on these conversations. And it so happened about 4 months, roughly 4 months or 3 months into the conversation, it was actually the new year, so I think it's the 4th month, when I actually started to get interesting comments. And one of those emails was someone who wrote to me saying, would you like to come and do a workshop at a company? And this is a big multinational software company. And my blog at that point was called designyourthinking.com. And design thinking is a discipline in the world in itself. So you Google design thinking, you'll actually be taken to Stanford's website and IDEO and all of that. So long story short, that was the first thing email that got me pretty interested. So I said yes to everything that came by.
Yeah.
I started doing workshops. I did speaking gigs. I started to do, interestingly, I even got someone writing to me saying, hey, I love your website. Would you be interested in creating a website just like yours for us? And I thought, like, hey, you're basically asking me to create another WordPress website for you. Sure, let me do it. So in that process, I realized it was not just the design, it was not the WordPress alone, it was what went into the website that they were more interested in.
Yeah.
They started telling me, no, it doesn't look like your website. And the more I asked them questions, I realized they were interested in the copy. And I didn't know at that point that copywriting is something that is a profession, let alone being one of the highest paid professions in the world.
Yeah.
So I got interested, like, hey, this is cool. Someone is actually going to pay me for doing something I didn't know existed. So I think that was the point I started to realize that this is turning out to be something. I'm on a career break, and I least expected such things to happen. I was thinking 2 years, I'm going to take a break, meet some interesting people through podcasts, and eventually go back to work. I didn't frankly think about going back to work, but that was how things were to be played out. But this started to take me in a different direction. I started to realize that the conversations that I was having with people was the reason why all these things were happening. So what was happening here is because I was speaking to these influential people, and they started sharing my interviews to their email list. I started to get more people listening to the show, and by way of introduction, I started to win people's trust, and they started to write to me and ask me all these different things that I did not even know existed in the first place.
Wow.
So I think for me, I realized there are 2 thumb rules I've always stuck with. Even today, I do it. When people ask me for something, I say yes. I never say a no. Second, whenever something shows up, I just try to see how best I can actually make myself useful for that opportunity.
Wow. That's an amazing story, because you see, you started with a passion. It was an idea, and then you understood the functionality, and then later on people were able to appreciate you for it. But in the beginning, nobody was really happy for you because they thought that you're about to change something that should not be changed. So when you're able to show people what your worth is, and then you're able to deliver consistently, that's when they'll be like, oh, me too, I have a nice voice, I can go there. Even for me as a musician, because I'm an artist, I'm an artist first.
Right.
And people are like, oh, you would do well on a late night Dr. Phil love show. And I was like, I don't think so, but okay, thank you for the compliment. So I think about those things, and I'm like, this is really somebody actually thought about something to say to me with this context in mind, and I wasn't taking it lightly, because I was like, maybe I could actually be talking about love, at 11 p.m.
Right.
But I was like, that's not my focus. That's not my goal. But if any way it fits and it comes in, perfect. I can talk about that on my podcast. But my focus is not on relationships. It's on society and culture. That's why those questions would come in between, and I'm able to, fit that frame or fit that idea the person had times the number of people who would think the same thing. So it's such an amazing experience to actually find yourself, and then find what actually things happen for you within that space, and then eventually it will come to you. That's why nobody told me, hey, start a podcast today or you're going to get fired. There was no attack. There was no, I could have easily said to myself, I don't want to, and I wouldn't have done it. But you see now, by me doing it, I'm able to meet people like you. I'm able to connect with people who I've never seen before, because I'm in that space that allows me to actually become vulnerable to the society by giving value and actually expecting something back, but not in the same measure I give it, because you never know what somebody has in mind. So that's that's why I was able to train myself and have a lot of skills. And even speaking of skills, how do you explore your hidden skills? How does someone think, oh, I also probably had the same thing too, but I don't know how to start? So how do they explore their hidden skills and come out with the best version of themselves?
Well, I think, one answer is never to say no, because sometimes our skills are things that we don't notice ourselves.
Yeah.
So you don't know that the skill exists until someone spots it in you, or sometimes you spot it if you're smart enough. I was not that smart enough to to spot these skills.
Okay.
And I think I just took the help of people like you who spoke to me and said, hey, would you like to be introduced to this person? They like to do this with you, etc., etc. And I think my just one small piece of advice, I don't even call it advice, I think from personal experience, is to go and not be afraid of trying new things. For me, when I started podcasting, I was like, I was 35, running 36, and I had a 2.5-year-old son at that point, and people thought I was nuts. Let me tell you the truth. That is exactly what people thought, and some of them have even told me that, if everything was okay, because I was having a very high-paying job and I was traveling and things like that, and people didn't expect. Even my family didn't expect, except my wife, who had told me yes. So I think let's just stop fearing and give it and try things. I'm not saying be foolish enough to put down an entire career and try something, but I think just try something in the evenings or in the weekends, and I'm sure you'll find something that's interesting enough to drag you on for a whole new adventure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And when you think about voice, you think about how long this thing can last. It can last a decade. We still listen to old music. We still listen to classic music. We still listen to music that was recorded in the 40s and the 50s, and you wonder, think about podcast 50 years from now. Where is it going to be like? We thought about the radio like, oh, we can't touch the radio. Now the radio is here. Now we are the radio, so now we realize that it's not hard to start something. It's just based on the fear and the outcome that somebody actually puts themselves in.
Right. Totally. And I really think, the future of anything is not clear to us, and so long as we are not doing something, we are just not connected to it.
Yeah.
And as you start doing something, you will start to see the future, not of just that thing that you're doing, but also your future in it, because I think that's what started to happen with me, or I've seen this happen with so many people who have started things new. There are people who've started painting when they're in their 40s, people who have started dancing when they're in their 60s, and I've spoken to all of these people, and I just get amazed and floored by the way, by the sheer conviction that these people bring with them when they actually talk about what they do and actually do what they do.
Exactly. It builds a lot of trust. It definitely builds attention. And then you're able to actually flow that wave, because this podcast we're listening to right now, or this podcast we're in this episode, someone may listen to this next week or a year from now and may need that information then. They may have never needed it before, but because it's available and they found it, now they're able to apply it. And that's the beauty of voice. That's the beauty of listening. That's the beauty of echo. So someone may want to ask, how do you even unlock money? How do you start a podcast and unlock money just like that? Because you are in a great job. You already had a great career going on, but you're like, no, this is what I want to do and this is where I'm going. And people are always going to tell you no, especially when it's fearful, because they themselves can't see themselves in that space, but you can. So is blogging and podcast, do they go together? Or can you just do podcast by itself and just become a money maker?
Well, I think podcasting or blogging, for that matter, just in itself don't make money, right? I mean, it doesn't help you make money. And I think the whole idea of podcasting, in my opinion, is relationship building. But relationships is the foundation for a good business or a good sale, if you want to talk very tactically. But I think relationship is what helps you do anything that you can probably do by yourself. If you're working for a company, then you don't need relationships. You just need to have a good CV and people will hire you and you're onto a roll.
Right.
And then if you want to do something on your own, if you want to stand on your own two legs and do something with your skills, then it's important that you understand that you cannot exist without people around you.
Yep.
And in order to have those people around you, you've got to build a network of your own, right? You can think about this whole thing as a set of concentric circles. I mean, you are in the center. You have people around you. The first set of people, your most important set of people who you can reach out to, who can put you across to more people. Now, how do you really get there? For which I think relationship building is number one. And I think podcasting from that perspective is an amazing tool, because just in the due course of one conversation, you start to see how you can actually build a relationship.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't really happen that in a similar way with blogging. Blogging is a little different, but I think podcasting to me is more powerful if you want to start building relationships. Blogging has its own strengths, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't necessarily need to have a blog, but there are people who talk about blog and podcasting from an SEO point of view, and I do talk about it too, but I think that's purely to be found. But if you're looking at podcasting as a relationship building tool, your attitude going in is to build relationships and use relationships to win businesses, connections, name it. You don't really care about how many people listen to your show. All you do care about is to have really good conversations in whatever topic you might have picked to have those conversations on.
Yeah, because even a friend of mine, and he's also a client, a very dear client, and he was even saying how my podcast, it feels like it's, actually two people said this, and they kind of said it in paraphrasing. They said that my podcast is somehow like a live show, but at the same time, it's not a live show and it's not scripted. So I said, yeah, thank you, because I don't want to sound like someone that just had 5 questions and after the 5 questions, okay, thank you so much for being here, catch you next week. No, the whole idea is to be part of the conversation. If it lasts an hour, if it lasts 10 minutes, at the end of the day, you're leaving with something. You may never have met this person or you've never heard this person before, but that person's story has inspired you to do something, to take an action. And that's what I like to see. That's what I like to hear, because when I'm told these things, it means that you're doing something right. Sometimes people may never tell you, oh, I'm listening to your podcast, and that's fine. They want to stay anonymous, that's perfect. But as long as they're being fed and as long as they're being led to do things that they need to do, I'm fine. You know, at the end of the day, you, like you said, you can't please everyone. So I'm here on my own journey. They're there on their own journey, but I'm helping you through the journey to get where you need to go to.
Right, right. I totally agree with that point because I think, like I said, I am a big believer of having genuine conversations, not for conversations for the sake of having them.
Yeah.
But I think, and when I say genuine, I think that there's another question I've been asked in the past. What do you really call a genuine conversation, right? Well, to me, I can see it clearly in the voice and the voice and the tone that people are talking to.
Yeah.
I can be talking to you here, answering every single question, and in every answer, I can actually see my business. That's one way of doing it, but I think that's not a genuine way of doing it.
Right.
Where I'm using every single opportunity to talk about my business, talk about my brand. But I think you can see it. If you're talking genuinely, then you are actually answering questions. You're actually in the moment. You're soaking in. You're thinking. You're not spitting out pre-crafted words.
Exactly. I always keep saying this too. Content is king. Context is queen. But at the same time, the more genuine the backstory is, the more the brand can tell itself.
Absolutely.
Because this just totally puts you on the pedestal, showing that if you know your why, you're going to know how to get there. If you know why you need to travel today, you're going to know how much a ticket costs. Those are things that are readily available for you. But before you get there, you need to know why you're going there. What is the plan? How many days am I spending in this place? And then you can make those decisions. But before even that decision comes, the why has to be actually in place for you to create that demand.
Right. I agree with you. I firmly agree with that kind of viewpoint.
Exactly. Thank you. And even speaking from why, this is an amazing question I definitely want to ask you. In terms of building a company, because you've seen the corporate side and now you see the entrepreneurial side, how is building a company centered around a set of personal values?
Well, I've been playing around with this question a lot in the recent few months. So personally, I have had a set of values that I started to develop in the last few years. So just to make sure that we're talking numbers, right? 2016, I quit my job. So essentially 2020, this is 2021, my fifth year. Complete my fifth year rather. So it means like 5 years have gone by, and 2 of those years was in the bucket of my career break. So when I started my show, it was a break. So I don't count that. So 3 years I've been in quote unquote business, though I started to make money before that. But I think what I started to think about year before last in 2019 and 2020, thanks to the pandemic, a lot of time was at my disposal to think about this too, is to see how can I actually build a business around the brand that I have, because I have been for the first 2 years working as a freelancer, essentially, right? It's people paid me for my time, and of course I started to sell my courses, which is of course not a freelancing thing, it's more entrepreneurial. But I think I was doing that as myself, and right now I'm in the process of building a team, getting people, and doing all those things that companies do. So I started to see how can and this question started to come in when I started to look out for someone to hire. How do I go about hiring people? Should I look for skill sets? Should I look for talent? Should I look for, I don't know, background, experience? And that's when I thought I needed to find a better answer to this, rather than finding skills and things that HRs do. And values is a great place for me to have found an interesting thread of discussions going around. So to think about values a little better, what I really started to do is to think about stories. So goals and purpose stories. How can I really put my values and take that and start to put my purpose, what I really want to do and achieve from building a business,
Yeah.
from myself. Why did I start doing what I'm doing right now in the first place, and what do I see myself doing in the next few years? And I started to use the purpose statement as a way to actually help me so there's an interesting article I read some time back, and I'll share the link with you after we're done. I don't have that handy, but it was written by Ash Reed. He is the chief of editorial at Buffer, the content company, the one that has the app. And these guys are doing some fantastic stuff. And this is a write-up on his personal blog, where he talks about how do you create a brand around narratives. Essentially a narrative-driven brand, which is essentially saying, I am building this brand around a certain set of stories, right? And we as humans are story creatures. We listen to stories, we tell stories. That's what makes us human.
Yeah.
And rather than trying to say, okay, I'm going to build this based on a set of values, and these values are going to be around X, Y, and Z, think of it as narratives. And when I say narrative, a narrative can be as simple as saying, I want to free the world of poverty. Right? That's a good narrative to have. If you're the kind of, if that suits your brand, that's a great narrative, and that helps you find more people who align with that kind of thinking. People, and it helps you find brands. For example, if you want to partner with brands, you can start to see brands with agree with or subscribe to that kind of a narrative that you have going. So I think that's the direction I've been taking my brand. We've kind of done a whole revamp and still going on in the process. But I think the way I started to think about this whole thing is, what are the narratives that I want to build my brand around? And these brands and these narratives, we've broken it down into multiple things. For example, podcasting is marketing is one of the narratives that we have.
Yeah.
Now just a 3-word phrase. Podcasting is marketing. Podcasting is relationship building, and these are narratives. And I think if it's a great way for me to start looking at people who subscribe to that. And when I say people, partners, team members, or for that matter, customers. If you don't believe that podcasting is marketing, I don't really want to do business with you, because I don't think we are going to, go to the promised land together.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That makes a lot of sense, because once you know what your value is, then people appreciate you for what you actually offer.
Right.
And that comes as a narrative, that comes as a story. Just like we know that not every story is good for everyone, not every brand is good for everyone. Even though the brand is super, super, super good, somebody might say, hey, I have something next door that's even 10 times better. That's your opinion. But that's your preference, and nobody holds you down to that. So I feel like it's a freedom of choice, but at the same time, it's what you really need in that particular moment that's going to make that change.
Right, and it also helps, us think what we want to do as the custodians of the brand. For example, one of the things I had earlier was a course for podcasting. And the course was a paid course, and people learned everything from how you, the mechanics of podcasting, which was recording, editing, etc., yada, yada, the entire thing. And with these narratives that we pick right now, it made complete sense for us to no longer charge people for those things. So one of the things we're doing is completely opening them up. They're going to be out on the internet. Because I don't see value, or I don't see me adding value to you if you subscribe to this narrative that podcasting is marketing, because I'm not teaching you marketing anyways.
Right.
So why should I charge you for it? Now, you could in turn say, okay, no, I think something else, and you could charge for it too. That's perfectly fine by me. I think I don't want to charge for it. So I think that's these are some of the ways it started to change the way we or I have done business. At this point, it's still me. So I think the way I've done business is changing, and there are, I think, yeah, I think it's it's just one way of looking at it. But I really like. I'll give you the link to Ash Reed's article. I think it's a great read.
Okay, most definitely. And I'll also probably share with the people too when they check out the podcast show notes. And that's something that I've been building because it's so amazing that when I started this series, it's called A.G.E, which is Aspiring Global Entrepreneurs. And I started it on LinkedIn like a joke. I was like, let me just talk about age, you know? And I just said, people are like, what is that? What is that? And it's been almost a year now, and I'm almost hitting the 100th episode for this series. And I said, okay, all the videos are going to be curated after the 100th series. And it was something I just decided to do. It wasn't I didn't have a board meeting. I didn't talk to my investors. I didn't talk to anyone. I just said, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And it's going to come out the right way. And as I kept doing that, episode 2, episode 3, I was like, damn, 100 is far away. Now we're on episode 80 something, 90 something. And you're like, oh, this is amazing. This is a really good plan. So I think when you're able to intentionally make a decision and build that narrative, build that story time, build that understanding that somebody's going to listen to this one day. So you have to prepare yourself to actually take in all that information and be that voice that is actually speaking to them. So when they listen to this, they're like, okay, yeah, this guy did this, so definitely I can do it too. And once you're able to inspire a lot of people like that, you never know what their world is going to turn into. And if you bring a whole lot of good, then you've done your part.
Right. Totally. I think, I mean, by the way, I love the acronym AGE. It's a good one.
Thank you.
And yeah, man, I think, stories is something that connects people. And I think personally, I really look at that as a great way for us to even, connect with our customers inside our little companies.
Exactly. And I really appreciate that. It's just about, making that decision and doing what is right. And then you're able to help people make those decisions, easily. And sometimes you may look at blogs, you're like, this person said this person said that. But when you decide to say, I want to do this, then no one can stop you, especially when you have the faith to do it. So tell me more about Design Your Thinking and how people can actually get value from that, because that's a place that I definitely want us to talk about before we close.
Absolutely. Well, Design Your Thinking, like I said, started with me taking a career break, and the whole blog has taken different turns and twists, and like it would in any individual's case, we all change and evolve through our years. Hopefully get better, and just like wine.
Yeah.
I think Design Your Thinking, right now what we are is, our company is called Design Your Thinking Labs, and what we really do is help people create, podcasts. So that's just the goal of the company, to help people create better podcasts. And there are these, like I said, narratives that we are after. So we don't say that you should create podcasts for this and you should create podcasts for that, but we do believe in these stories that podcast is relationship building, podcast is marketing, and we go with these stories and build our products around those things. So what we do is, on one side we do a B2B service where we work with brands to actually help them create podcasts. And we start all the way from business and strategy. That brings my background from the first 15 years of my life, of my professional life, I would say. And then there is this other side where we actually work with B2Cs, and one is through. So far, we've had courses. So, like I said, starting to open up a lot of these courses. And what we're launching in March this year is a more cohort-driven program, which is why the Free Your Voice Live thing is, which is, I realized that it made more sense for people to go together and me to be available with them as we did it live, and as they launched, created and launched their podcasts. And it's a more holistic program covering business and podcasting and storytelling and things of that kind. So that's the B2C side, or the courses, and I have all of them in freeyourvoice.live. But Design Your Thinking is the umbrella where we are actually doing all of this today.
Okay.
So that's the brand, and that's what we do. Would love for you to check it out. And if there is anything you think flavor is interesting and important and worthwhile sharing, I'll be happy to share those resources for your listeners. We could put together a special link if you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm definitely down for that, because I think every episode is unique and everybody is unique too. So it shows that there's individuality and people are able to connect without being fearful about the outcome. So it's definitely a go-to. If somebody wants to reach you personally, or maybe give you a shout out, or connect with you, how can they do that?
I'm at Kartv everywhere. So at KARTVEE. So I'm right now. I'm just trying to play around with Clubhouse, and been having some good fun being in a few rooms. But I think you can find me everywhere. But that said, the best places that you probably will get a response from me immediately, or maybe in the next 10 minutes, is going to be on Instagram. So just find me at Kartv on Instagram and hit me up and let me know how tell me your story. I'm a sucker for people's stories.
Oh.
I realize I learn so much from people's stories, and it's a shame that we were not able to do that on this show. Hopefully we'll connect, and I would like to learn more about you. But I think for those of you listening in, hit me up. Tell me your story. I would love to know, what keeps you going. Why do you really want to ping this guy sitting in India and Bangalore? Well, how can I make an impact and make a positive change in your life? Let me know.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I'm sure people are going to follow you and find you and connect with you, which is the whole point of conversation. This has been amazing. Podcast. Yeah, this is like podcast 101 for whoever is listening to this podcast, because we talk about everything from SEO to digital marketing to lifestyle to, faith to podcasting now to film. And it's great that we're able to add this valuable information for people to just take in and say, this is a new wave. This is a new age of business. So do it the right way. And there are people to help you through the process. So there's really nothing that you can say is an excuse for you right now, because it's readily available.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And interestingly, we're launching a couple of shows in March, along with the launch of Free Your Voice Live. Free Your Voice Live, by the way, is not officially launched. So I think one of the shows, it's called The Launch Plan. And what we're really doing and what's happened, I think it's going to be useful for you listeners, because one of the things I realized, Flavor, in the past 3 years now, third year, is businesses survive, or businesses are businesses in the first place because they are always launching something. They're always launching, and it could be a personal brand, it could be your service, you could be a DJ, and you could be trying to get gigs, but you're launching yourself out there in the market. And this whole show that we're trying to put together is around launches and how, and it's a combination. It's an interesting one where we're bringing in stories and also very tactical plans and strategies and things of that nature as well, all focused around launches. So if any of you is thinking of maybe launching something, it could be whatever it is, then you're sure to find something really interesting there, because we're having people from the biggest names do this, the really up and coming ones too.
Wow. This is amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining the Playroom. I really appreciate your time. What time is it even in India right now?
Well, it's 8:30 the night. So
my, it's almost 10 a.m. here.
Right, and that's the only way you can connect. And I'm a night owl, so yeah, I'm really excited to have had for having spent the last 60 odd minutes with you, Flavor, with you, and every single person listening to this right now. I don't know if this video is going to be out, but then thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate and respect each one of you who's listening, and I do respect what you're doing. Please keep doing, and don't never second doubt yourself.
That's a big one. Yes, that is a big home takeaway. Exactly. And I also look forward to being on your podcast too one of these days.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Most definitely. Thank you so much. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you, Flavor. You too. Take care.
Night. Sorry. Talk soon.